Well, still on matters energy, with the world targeting to achieve universal energy access by the year 2030, Kenya has put its target on achieving this key milestone by next year, that is the year 2022. But are we on course, and do we have an enabling policy regulation? I had a chat with Patrick Tunui, the head of policy and regional strategy at GOGLA, the Global Off-Grid Lighting Association, which represents over 125 members as the voice of the off-grid solar energy sector on this journey towards universal energy access. Take a look.
The issue of solar and its importance. What role does solar play in a normal Kenyan life today?
The global community in Kenya have all recognized the importance for every household, every citizen to have access to a modern energy solution, electricity essentially, because access to energy and electricity is a key enabler for very many things. If you're undertaking any economic activity, you need electricity. If you're going to have energy access for example, for learning, last year when we went through COVID, and the Ministry of Energy pushed for kids to be able to continue through either television-based programs or radio-based programs. To be able to access that, you need a radio, you need a television, and for that you need to have access to a way to charge and run those appliances. So when that, the global communities recognize that access to energy is a key enabler. Kenya had already identified previously as part of its national development goals that we wanted to have everybody in Kenya have access to energy by 2020. That goal shifted a little bit because we didn't make progress on it, or enough progress, to 2022. But today, Kenya is actually a poster child for the efforts that have been made to make sure everybody has access to this. And that's why we see, unlike so many of the other countries in the developing world, Kenya today is recording up to about 75% energy access. Now, if you look at the 2019 national census, how has that access been realized? About 50% is realized through extension of the grid, but about 19% and just over 19% is actually being enabled through these off-grid solar solutions. And it's because in the national electrification planning, as well as the best practice globally now, the model is around what they call integrated electrification planning for least cost as well as most appropriate technologies. There's communities that you're able to provide energy access using the grid. There's communities that you need to provide energy access using mini-grids. And then there are communities, for one reason or another, that need to be provided services through the standalone systems, which is now what we're talking about.
So everything comes at a cost. We understand that. And for solar, it is very cost sensitive. In fact, with the introduction of the value-added tax, we saw immediately the consumption was affected. So in this issue of cost, kindly elaborate for us, why is cost so sensitive when you talk about solar?
So if you look at the 2018 National Electrification Strategy, it identified that there will be portions of Kenya that will be serviced using standalone or other, either mini-grid or standalone solutions which generate the electricity and store it from solar. However, the plan also recognized that cost and the affordability was going to be one of the biggest constraints, which is where now we come to this issue of the VAT. For a long time, we've really been working as an industry and having a conversation with the national government about what do we need to do to keep the prices as low as possible, because the communities that we're serving using these mini-grids or off-grid solutions will be rural communities who are typically lower income. Without energy access, that means even the level of economic activity is lower. And therefore, we all need to do what we can to keep prices low. I think the introduction of VAT on our products, which came in at 14% in July last year because there were the COVID incentives, but now in this January went up to 16%, have completely undermined that. what we've seen is that the prices for the standalone systems have gone up from anywhere from 14 to 40%. And when you look at the mini grids, what they're looking at is they're seeing that their tariffs can go up higher by up to 4 to 5%.
When you talk about quality, it being a key component when you are considering usage of solar in our ecosystem in Kenya right now, have we been sensitive to the issue of quality and affordability?
Kenya adopted global standards developed by the IEC that essentially says that a product that is in Kenya should have a minimum warranty of 2 years for the small system, and it should be able to do certain things, like to be able to operate at least for 4 hours in the evening every day. It should be able to allow you to charge, provide an hour of charging to a phone and also 4 hours of charging to a radio and a few other things. Because one of the things we as an industry, and I think everybody's concerned, is that if we're going to use these products for energy access, they have to work and they have to provide an acceptable level of service. So as we talk about affordability, we've also got to talk about the issue of quality and standards. So what we as an industry have done is we've seen that we're able to now deliver quality, affordable products at a really affordable price. Today, if you go and find a quality verified product from the lanterns, you can get the small lanterns for, I think, under 1,000 shillings, and then they go up from there. But now, when we come to the issue again of affordability, is where we've said we know that the customer and the person that needs this product, who generally is living on an off-grid community, cannot afford upfront the product that we want generally, which is how we as an industry did two things. One is talk to our governments to say, how do we partner to keep prices low? We are really fortunate in Kenya. The Ministry of Energy has really been at the forefront in this. They launched a program called the Kenya Off-Grid Solar Access Project in 2018, which is looking at how do they provide support to keep those prices low, and we are seeing some progress in that regard. Then the second one was this conversation on what other instruments, if you look at your tax burden between VAT and customs duties, could be up to 40% of the product cost. So in East Africa in general, going back to 2004, had actually adopted that they would keep duties off of these products, because for them and for the countries, energy access is a core development agenda and mandate. So this is why today you'll see East Africa is one of the top in terms of penetration and progress on energy access, and Kenya has been the poster child.
The elephant in the room, we understand, is the 16% value-added tax, and we've alluded to it earlier on. Now to the ground, because you've just explained the sector is very cost-sensitive. These 16% VAT, what impact is it having on the ground? When
VAT was introduced on these products in 2012, you saw an immediate depreciation in terms of the penetration, and it was removed again in 2013. And in 2018, there was a study done in Kenya that showed that the introduction of taxes, if you introduce 15% taxes, you will see a drop of 40,000 households affording products per year. So right now, the statistics are with the introduction of these taxes, you will see 40,000 less households get access to energy every year, as long as those taxes are in place. And when you look at the number of households that are supposed to be given access using off-grid solutions in Kenya today, it's about 1.1 million. And over 10 years, that's about 400,000 households. So I think in this conversation around how do we keep prices as low as possible and also push forward that energy access agenda, I think we all need to be doing what we can. A big driver for our industry is the provision of flexible payments, what we call pay-as-you-go. which allows for customers to be able to pay slowly for the products that they take. And previously, you'd find that companies would charge maybe 5% down payment and then allow customers to pay for their product over time, 12 months, 18 months, whatever it would be. However, with the introduction of VAT now, VAT is actually due upfront, that's 16%. And one of the things that the companies are all wrestling with is if you are paying, you're going to collect from your customer upfront 5%. And then immediately 16% is due to VAT, as your revenue, as your VAT or tax measure, then companies are saying, my bottom line cannot sustain it. I don't have the ability to tell my customer, you can only afford this much. I will go back into my cash reserves and bring out another 16% to pay the tax upfront. So at this point, companies are seeing one of two things. Either their cash positions is deteriorating very quickly, they have to slow down their sales, or they have to go back to their customer and say, I can no longer charge you 5% down payment, I have to now collect 25% or 20%. And why for us that is significantly important is, again, back to affordability. You would find that if you have a solar system that may be costing you, 30,000 or more if you're going to take a product that allows you to even have access to a television, and then you have to charge 20% and you go back to our core customer, are they able to come up with 10,000 shillings from the pocket immediately, or are they trying to get 3,000-4,000 shillings? And this, for a lot of households, is the make or break in terms of what system that they can afford.
We've seen, this is a global trend. We understand that the world is going renewable, and we're seeing innovation around renewable energy. We've seen electric cars. In our country, as we speak right now, we're seeing the spread and growing of renewable energy. What does this do to the aspect of innovation and innovating around renewable energy?
I think this is one of the areas we should be celebrating as Kenya. If you look, could almost say we are the test bed. We are the place where all these ideas and innovation is being tried out. Not just move away from electric vehicles. The use of, for example, if you go back historically, you go to fishing communities, like in Lake Victoria, where before they were using kerosene when they go out for night fishing. And now we've seen a complete replacement. There's the statistics coming from, for example, Tanzania, where now in Lake Victoria, you hardly see any kerosene used in fishing lanterns at night. And in Kisumu, there's a company and a number of companies that are piloting rental solar lanterns for fishermen that go out at night. They'll bring it back in the day and pick another one. There's tests being done around the use of community-based cooling, so that when you bring in fish or other fresh produce, you've got these where the ice is produced, is some of the technologies that companies are looking to bring from other places to come and pilot and see if we can do it at scale here. The other story that's really unsung is the use of solar and solar irrigation for productive use, moving away from the use of petrol or diesel-based generators, so that now you can actually, from water pans or even from deep wells, you can pump using a small immersible or surface pump, and pump your water out and irrigate your crops. And there's really good success stories that we can show in Kenya that farmers are benefiting from that. We're also experimenting on the use of solar for higher use purposes. For example, if you've got tailors who are off-grid, and you can use now sewing machines that are running off of solar. We've seen that being modeled out in places like India, and those could very well come here, and a number of other areas. But I think you'll find a lot of companies do come to Kenya to test this out, and we will probably be the first place that will see a lot of these technologies come to scale. So not just in Kenya, but across many of the developing world, because this is where the need is, this is where the market is.
We understand the status quo is not as encouraging as it should, especially with the introduction of this VAT. Is there an intentional effort from industry players to make sure that some of these issues are addressed on a policy level?
Yes, so this is something that we've been doing. We've been having conversations with our line ministry, which is the Ministry of Energy. We've had conversations with the Parliamentary Committee on Energy. We've had opportunities to talk to the Parliamentary Committee on Finance and National Planning. We are trying to engage with the National Treasury on this. And really, what we are trying to talk to them about is two areas. One, what is Kenya's national priority? Kenya's national priority, as we understand it, is around the Big Four, and as well as the Vision 2030, which is to see a growth in economic activity and inclusive development so that it's widespread. We think looking at what are those pillars, the pillars include energy access, and we've shown, and we actually have reports that have shown that when you provide energy access to especially rural households, we saw that for any community, any household buying, about 30% of those households actually use those systems for productive use. Productive use, we mean by income generation activities. And then beyond that, we are seeing that on average up to about $40 a month generated from those households using this. So if you look at now, you scale up and add up the jobs that we are creating, you add the economic activity that is done. We have a report that is showing that there's a net 7-to-1 return to the country. So for every shilling that is forgone in taxes in this sector, the economic impact is about 7 shillings, which is a really huge positive return. And I think this is something that, as we look towards COVID recovery, as we look towards stimulating and seeing more inclusive development, particularly in our far-flung areas and the communities that are typically lagging behind, how are we going to see that? We need to really stimulate economic activity there, which will either be in agriculture, it would be in small businesses, and how do you enable that? It comes to energy access.
The universal energy access, the goal is that by 2030 we should achieve this. In fact, Kenya, we are very confident on ourselves that by the year 2022 we should have done this. We are counting months to 2022. Do you think we'll reach this goal in these few months that are left?
I think, I don't know. There's actually a global conversation happening at the UN now called the UN High-Level Dialogue that's been called by the Secretary General. And Kenya has been selected actually as under the access as one of the champions on that, which is something commendable for the country. Globally, there's a recognition that I think there's about 800 million people without energy access today, and at the current pace that we are on, we are not going to reach that 2030 goal. We are likely to see about 600 million still left. Coming back to this conversation in Kenya is the recognition that the places that are unelectrified today is because they're not easy to reach. Even if you're to say, private sector go there, or we, the government, will bring the grid, you just cannot. You don't have enough money. Or even if you invest in it, you'll find the energy demand from those households may not be high enough to justify that use of public resources. So, which is why we think that if these small solutions that we're delivering are actually available, that you can come to any urban center, you buy and you take that system, and suddenly, no matter where you are, as long as you have the sun, which we celebrate, we have in abundance here, it means you can now immediately have a grid, called an electric connection. It means immediately you have access to bulbs and lights. You have access to, you can charge your phone, you can run a radio, you can run a TV. As we invest as industry, we are hoping to see now that the other appliances, we've seen have very high efficiency fridges now available, so which means you can run a small fridge. In the future, we hope to see you can cook off that solar energy, and it's really about finding systems that the price point is still low. I think it's really around keeping costs and so systems low, price affordable for the consumer.